After nearly 30 years in local town government, culminating in the position of first selectman in Durham, Laura Francis decided that she needed a change of pace. Moving to a position with the South Central Region Council of Governments, she will do what she does best, helping local governments thrive. With so much experience and expertise, she will now move her focus to regional projects with the COG, putting its 15 municipalities in a position to succeed. She joins the Municipal Voice this week to talk about her history and the future of the region. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Gateway Community College and Housatonic Community College. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state-local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or member municipal leaders. Laura, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Always nice to have you on the show.
Same here.
So recently, it's very exciting, you moved over to the South Central Region Council of Governments after 3 decades working for the town of Durham. Finally, at the end, you were the first selectman. What drew you to local government initially, and what inspired you to stay for such a long and impressive career?
So many years ago when I was in college, and I almost gave you the number, but I think I should probably keep that one to myself. I did my senior project, which back then was called independent study, today would be called a capstone, in a very small municipality in Rhode Island.
Okay.
And after working in a couple of internships at state and federal level of government, I kind of fell in love with local government because it is where you can have the biggest impact to people's lives, or at least the most direct impact to people's lives. And so when I moved to Durham, I saw an opportunity to apply for a position at the town hall, and I was very, very fortunate to get that position as assistant town clerk. My predecessor at the time had stayed there for 32 years. And my town clerk that I served under, she unfortunately passed away in office. She had been there for 32 years. So when I say how very, very fortunate I was to get into the town hall, it really was a very opportune moment in time, right? Because people generally
dedicated
stay
staff
in those
in Durham,
positions for a long time. And then there was an opportunity to run for office after being town clerk in the town clerk's office for 15 years, to move into the first selectman's office. And I was very fortunate to have the confidence of the electorate to allow me to challenge myself in that new role. And I never looked back. It was the most exciting time of my career for many, many reasons.
No regrets, definitely.
No regrets. No regrets.
So in your outgoing letter to the residents of Durham, you mentioned prioritizing clean water for residents as one of your crowning achievements. What are some of the other projects that you worked on in your role as first selectman that stand out to you that you're extra proud of?
So you won't be surprised to hear that when I took office, I inherited aging infrastructure.
Common problem in Connecticut.
So it is when there are competing priorities and limited budgets, oftentimes capital projects do get pushed aside. And I discovered that we had aging, and when I say aging, 50 to 75-year-old bridges and culverts and road drainage projects that hadn't been attended to. So I'm very proud to say that we took care of a lot of that through the hard work of our Public Works Department and the generosity of our taxpayers to take the time to realize that how important that kind of town asset is, and they approved through their funding. I also modernized a lot of the way we did things in the town hall. When I started in 1992, we did not have any computers. By the time I left, everything was becoming more and more automated, and it was exciting to shepherd a lot of that, from being the first person to develop a website to implementing the 911 emergency system to making it so that town hall employees could work remotely.
Yeah.
So I was very proud of how I upgraded a lot of the systems. And of course, none of this I did alone, right? Very, very talented employees that worked with the town of Durham, and advisors from regional entities, and of course CCM, in helping us learn what best practices are, et cetera. Focused a lot on public safety too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of communities who were dependent on volunteer services, town of Durham was really experiencing some challenges, particularly in the EMS department. And by the time I left, we secured a contract with Middlesex Hospital to provide that very, very vital service to our residents. And so I can, then and now, I can sleep better at night knowing that if anyone needed an ambulance, it would come promptly with very talented people working in those rigs. So
I'm sure everybody.
Those are just a few.
Those are some good ones. Those are definitely ones to be proud of. But you then made what was, I'm sure, a kind of difficult decision to leave your post as the chief elected official to a position that's no less important, but it's very different with the greater region as deputy director and also director of transportation and planning at the COG. Carl Amento, the director of the COG, we also know at CCM as a former chief elected official of a town. What drew you to this organization?
Well, it's a little bit like coming home for me. I grew up in Hampden and West Haven, and the SCROG region was very always closely aligned with the River COG. So my home COG is River COG.
Okay.
And because we share a DEMIS region, which is the Department of Homeland Security, we do a lot of things together with this region. So Carl and I had known each other for a long time. This COG has a longstanding history of being led by former chief elected officials. Before Carl, who was the former mayor of Hampden, it was Judy Gott, who was from Branford, right? Branford. And
right.
I think that it was an easy transition for me, because the town of Durham, you probably have heard me say this, was the poster child for regionalism. From education to public safety to waste management, we were used to looking to outside of Durham to provide those vital services. And so it was kind of easy for me to transition to a regional platform because I had already been so closely aligned with many regions.
You're used to thinking in that kind of mode of sharing between the towns and cities and how you can best maximize things for the residents.
Right.
How important do you think the COGs are now, especially that they've been given the county level equivalency as far as federal programs goes?
Well, I think that's going to be the foundation to hopefully in the future make us eligible for funding in ways that other states are getting funding for counties, right? We're not quite there yet, but at least now the census recognizes our COG regions as county equivalents. So I thank my fellow COG colleagues for advocating for that, because I think in the future it's going to reap a lot of good benefits for towns and regions in Connecticut. But particularly, COGs are going to be vital to help fill in the gaps for municipalities who are being challenged, most particularly in staffing. To be able to take on all that they have been asked to do over the years. You know, I said it in my first term of office. I got a very different job than I ran for. And that was true every single term I was reelected thereafter. Because, right, the job is changing, the role of municipal government is changing, and COGs are increasingly filling in the gaps to help municipalities do what they feel challenged to do. And in this region, we've been helping municipalities with cybersecurity, with waste management, municipal composting, grant writing, with procurement. Those are just a few of the things that we've been assisting with. But of course, COGS work for the membership.
Yeah.
So the board of directors, which it consists of the CEOs from each member town, we work with them very closely and we keep our ear very close to the ground to hear where their challenges are. And then we discuss whether or not it makes sense to do that or fill in that gap regionally. For instance, some COGs are even considering hiring assessors, hiring building officials, to zoning enforcement officers, because in those areas, municipalities are finding it very difficult to fill those positions when they become vacant. And then we are noticing also from the federal government that many grants now require regional review. And many notices for funding opportunities are asking municipalities to make sure that their projects are aligned with regional goals, with regional plans, with regional strategies to address issues, whether it's transportation or climate issues, or even equity issues right now. And so COGs are very important to municipalities to make sure that what they're doing aligns with the bigger picture, which is really a very smart way to approach planning, right?
So increasingly, COGs are providing some of these kind of essential services to towns, and you mentioned a few of them. Cybersecurity, composting, some solid waste issues. Can you talk a little bit more about some of those issues, what you're hearing from your members, and why these issues are affecting our town so much right now?
Well, the impacts of those don't stay inside the boundary of a town, right? So often if a municipality is suffering a cyber attack, that could affect not just the residents of that municipality, but their employees, their vendors, et cetera, et cetera. And oftentimes that has wide impact. Municipal composting. That is another way that we can all learn from each other. We often share destinations for that material, so we can help each other secure better contracting when we do that together. Efficiencies and cost savings, and it's been really rewarding to work on those things regionally. And the state of Connecticut is also looking for us to do that, right? So it used to be that the COG's major source of funding, which still is the transportation dollars that come from the federal government through the state. But now the state of Connecticut is giving regional service grants to COGs to encourage that type of service and resource sharing.
That's great. So the state's acting like a partner in a lot of ways to you guys now. That's great. You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM. In your role as Director of Transportation Planning, you have a lot on your plate. between long-term investment in transit-oriented development and an influx of money from the IIJA, and also move towards sustainable methods of transportation, electric cars. There's a lot going on right now. How do you prioritize issues in transportation planning?
Well, that's a challenge because I've been in local government long enough to remember the days when all of these opportunities and funding opportunities came as a trickle, drip, 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 right? Now it's a fire hose. And while that is all good, it has been a challenge keeping up with it all.
Mm-hmm.
COGs across the state, including ours, are looking to staff up, like the state of Connecticut is trying to do, so that we can maximize our opportunities to get our fair share of those dollars. Because at the end of the day, with all of the automation that we have, it still takes people to prepare those grant applications, to develop the projects, to prioritize, to make sure that the project's impact will be as intended, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes it's a thoughtful prioritization. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just which one is the next one due. And then, of course, we take cues from our members. Mm-hmm. What is important to one town isn't necessarily important to another town. And so we have to make sure that we're also, meeting their goals as well as the overall regional goal.
Very cool. So at the COG, you kind of operate under three different umbrellas: the Regional Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the Transportation Improvement Program, and the Unified Planning Work Program. What are the kind of the elevator pitches for these three efforts?
So the Regional Metropolitan Transportation Plan is the plan that outlines our goals, our strategies, what we want to see our region look like, act like, be like. Mm-hmm. The UPWP, the Unified Planning Work Plan, is where we put together the studies, put together the plans that are the foundational documents, the foundational work that help develop the projects.
Okay.
And then the projects, once they are developed, identified, will get part of the tip or the STIP. And that's where we have to work very, very closely with the state of Connecticut so that our priorities become their priorities become our priorities.
Excellent. So the kind of three kind of steps along the way: the what we want to do, how do we do it, and then making it happen. Sort of divisions of the stuff there. That's very cool. Yeah. New Haven, where we are at CCM, is a major hub for rail infrastructure, and the governor, senators, and many others have often talked about the need for major rail improvements to the service, to Hartford, to New Haven, Shoreline East. What role might the COG play in improving the service, and how can the area benefit from improved service?
Well, first of all, the area would benefit greatly by increased rail because it would bring in employees, right? We have heard time and time again that almost industry-wide there are challenges in the workforce. So the more we can bring in workforce via public transportation to our employers, to housing, to entertainment, the better quality of life we are going to have in all of those different areas, whether it's life, work, and entertainment, tourism, et cetera, et cetera. Rails is a high ticket item, so clearly the state is going to be the driver on that.
Yeah.
But what we can do locally is make sure while that planning is taking place, that we limit adverse environmental impact to our region, that we maximize benefit to our region, where we can align transportation, whether it be rail or transit or all multimodal, right? To our assets that are here, and we can help with that public outreach.
Yeah.
Every COG is very, very active in coordinating public outreach to gather that kind of input from all different sectors, from the neighborhoods all the way up to multinational corporations that are inside our region. So we play a very vital role in that coordination as well.
Definitely. You have the local knowledge and also the knowledge of the program, so you can kind of bring those two worlds together. That's good stuff.
Right. We also play a role in, as you well know, with your good work that you do with all of the municipal leaders around the state. They're very, very busy.
Yeah.
And they have to become a jack of all trades. They have to become a little bit of expert on a lot of different topics. COGs across the state, including ours, play an important role of informing municipal leaders of a lot of these programs. Some of the, I would say, emerging ideas and best practices, et cetera, et cetera. We can be the thinkers for our municipal leaders who don't have time to think.
You can be the specialists.
Yes.
That really focus on the one issue and then help them all figure it out.
Right.
That's very cool. It's an important role in local government, definitely. As the director of transportation planning, if you could choose one project to fund entirely that would benefit the entire region, what would it be?
Oh, come on. That's like asking a mother, who's your favorite child? You can't answer that question.
It's me, obviously.
But I can answer it this way. I would choose the project that would have the biggest impact in improving the safety of all of our different transportation modes, particularly on our highways. When you see the numbers of fatalities and severe accidents that we have on our highways across the nation, but particularly in Connecticut, it will really make you sad, because with every person who loses a life or loses any kind of quality of life, that affects not just that person, but families and employers and friends and our economy. And so to think that we could make a difference in improving that, that's the project that I would choose. That solution is not easy. Used to be that transportation planners would look at highway geometry, road geometry, and infrastructure, and look at all the reasons why that crash happened. But
it's
now,
a blind turn. It got icy.
All of that.
Yeah.
And there is still that very important work that has to be done. But increasingly, it's behavior that is causing a lot of these fatal and severe crashes. Yeah. And that's not as easy to solve, right? You can't get an engineer on that as easily as you could on road design. Yeah. So we are working with not only the state of Connecticut, but the Federal Highway Administration to look at how can we affect behavior in motorists today to improve highway safety.
So would that be like education programs you would look into?
It's education. It's looking at design of cars even. There is so much going on inside of a car today that can distract you from driving. The size of the cars. Everyone's driving an SUV today. And so you ask, why are there so many more pedestrian fatalities today than there used to be? Well, a smaller sedan car, if they hit a pedestrian, would hit it hit that person in the lower half of his body.
Yeah, and you move on
Where
the hood
now,
now. Yeah.
yeah, if you hit a person with an SUV, you're hitting the upper part of the body, which will result
Yeah.
in, more serious injuries.
Yeah. I imagine some of
So
the work you're doing with mass transit too could help. Everyone that's on the train isn't on the road in a car, and is, less congestion. I imagine makes things safer too.
exactly, and better for the environment, presumably,
We
arguably.
definitely. Um, so, kind of towards the end of the show, we always like to ask our guests how they are feeling about the future. You've taken on quite a big role with the COG. How do you feel about the many moving parts going on in this region? Do you think that the IIJ money is going to be transformative? Do you feel optimistic about the future of the region?
I do. In fact, people have seen me since I've changed jobs, and they've often commented that I have my smile back because I am optimistic. Because what I'm seeing in this role versus my last role that kept me very, very focused and a little myopic is that we have younger people working in more important roles.
Mm-hmm.
While I miss so many of my colleagues that I worked at the state of Connecticut who have retired, I'm finding the people that have replaced them have such facility with technology, and they're bringing that perspective to problem solving. They seem to be much more collaborative,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's due to the way they were educated versus maybe back in my day
Mm-hmm.
with group approach to things.
Yep.
And, anytime that you see fresh eyes on things, it just makes me excited and very optimistic for the future. I also see a little shift happening in government as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, while I think government on every level is a little bit more open
Mm-hmm.
to out of the box solutions. You don't hear people say anymore, this is what we've always done.
Yeah.
And, and so that excites me. I also see the BIL and money coming in from other sources for a lot of different areas, from
Mm-hmm.
climate change to transportation to infrastructure. Energy begets energy.
Yeah.
So when we start checking off these projects, and some of them have been on the books for a very long time, when we start checking them off as complete,
Mm-hmm.
that energizes people to, plan for more. They see things are possible. And yeah, I'm very optimistic.
Optimism is contagious.
Yeah,
And are you also feeling the same way for the state as the whole? Beyond the region, do you think this is a good time for Connecticut?
I do think this is a good time for Connecticut because there are job opportunities like never before. I think even for every age group, right? So I'm of an age, right, where maybe I should have thought about retiring.
Mm-hmm.
But here I am in a new role, and I see many of my friends and colleagues of my age
Mm-hmm.
looking to start new careers because I think there's such a shortage of the workforce right
Yeah.
now. And so that's exciting. Young people are no longer feeling challenged the way they did before when they graduated college, that they weren't going to find a job. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much available now. And if you don't want to go to college, there's so much opportunities for really good paying jobs
Mm-hmm.
in the trades and elsewhere. So, um, you know, it's changed, and it came on slowly,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, COVID kind of slowed it down a little bit.
Yep.
Um, but I think it's coming back, and it's coming back strong. That's what I have to say.
Here, go
That's
Connecticut.
my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, Laura Francis, so much for speaking with us today. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
All right. Well, thank you. And to all your colleagues there at CCM, I really credit you with so much of my career development and so much support over the years. So it'll be hard for me to say no the next time you call.
We'd like to thank our guest, Laura Francis. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Gateway Community College and Housatonic Community College. Learn more at gatewayct.edu and housatonic.edu. Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Kevin Maloney is our executive producer. Christopher Gilson is our producer. Harry Draws on the boards. I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like. And watch out for our CCM chat series on our YouTube